Hello, and welcome to the Saturday MP Show, episode number 89, being recorded mostly live March 2nd, 2026. This is usually a show where we do some coding examples or do some live coding or discuss some technical stuff. But today we're going to talk about being a consultant, just because I get asked questions frequently about consulting and how to become a consultant. And I guess not frequently, but every once in a while I get those questions. And then I got bombarded the last week or two with a bunch from people on Slack. And then I was at some meetups and people were asking me in person. So I figured, hey, why don't we just answer these in a video? And the other reason I'm doing this video is because for those that I always love to pretend people keep watching all these. Omar's not here today. Yeah, he's been co-hosting with me for the last couple weeks. And hopefully he'll be back soon. So anyway, long story, but he couldn't, no, not really long story, but anyway, stuff came up. He couldn't make it here today. And, so no postcast video today. We've been working on that app called Postcast, kind of live coding in Go and having some discussions. Maybe next week we'll be back to that. We'll see. So today, again, we're going to go back to discussing consulting, and I'm just going to answer some questions about consulting. I don't know if this is going to make a great video, maybe a better podcast, but whatever. We're going to try it. We're going to see what happens for all like 2 people that watch this channel on a regular basis. Thank you for watching. We'll try it and see what happens. I guess before we get too far, if you have any questions, you can always send the ask at SaturdayMP.com, or you can leave comments down below. If you like this video, share it with others. That's probably the biggest way you can say thanks, or you can send me a thanks in the comments. Just hitting like and subscribe and all that stuff, that just helps. If you like this video, it helps other people find it. It does make me feel better. I think it makes every creator feel a little better, but it just helps other people find it. That's probably the biggest thing. If you didn't like it, send me some constructive criticism in the comments or to the email or something like that. So, all right, let's see how this goes. So this is the plan for today, kind of what we'll do. And how can I make this more attractive? I don't know. We'll see if I can make some video-y stuff for it too. But we'll start off with the disclaimer and who am I? Like, why should you listen to me? And then, do I need a PO box? That's just a question that somebody asked me just recently. The main question I get asked all the time is, how do I get started as consulting? I don't get asked these 2 a lot, but I think they're important. The difference between a sole proprietorship and a corporation. And then kind of just some last, advice. Leaving a trail of happiness, just kind of some advice about that. So, all right. So let's start with part 1. So the disclaimer is, I'm not a lawyer or a consultant, or I'm a consultant. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an accountant. I'm not any of those things. So you should take my advice with a grain of salt. You should seek professional advice and know that basically the advice I'm giving you is from a sample size of 1. So this is kind of what's worked for me. Maybe 1.5, because I have done research and talked to other, consultants and stuff like that. But it's a very small sample set, and it's what's worked for me. And so take my advice with a grain of salt, adjust it as needed. If it doesn't work for you, as always, just discard advice that's not useful and find advice that's better. Let's see if the advice is worth what you pay for it. So, all right. So that's kind of the disclaimer. And then who am I? So my name is Chris, and I have been a consultant since, I guess we can bring this. Whoops. Where did it go? SaturdayMP. So, there we are. Oh, cool. Came up like the second one there. I've been a consultant since, before 2009, but 2009 was when I got incorporated and I started Saturday Morning Productions. Before that, I was a software developer for a bunch of different companies, mostly small companies, but a bigger company, like one of them was a company called Sierra Systems, which I think they renamed themselves. can't remember what their new name is right off the top of my head, but for there I was like an employee, but was also like basically they're a consulting company that work for government organizations here in Edmonton. Um, yes, and I've been a software developer for 25 some odd years. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say about myself. I guess it's why you should listen to me because I'm old. Um, yeah, and I've been doing this for a while, and I guess a little bit more of a history about me is other people often ask like, how do I find clients? And sometimes I'm not really good at answering that because usually I tend to have long term clients. I guess in the past I've had longer term clients, and so I'm not getting new clients like every month or every year. I'd have a client for like usually one main client for a couple years that I'd almost like full time work with, and then a couple smaller clients that I would do the occasional little bit of work for. Uh, so that's kind of that's my background, and most of it is with my client consulting job has been with small to medium sized businesses. I usually don't do a lot of work for larger enterprise businesses. At least for me, I've just found that the process of applying for them and filling out their forms, especially government, like when I first started consulting, I tried a couple government contracts, but their RFPs, the request for proposals, like and all the forms you had to fill out, it was just so much work just to like never hear back from them. And so it was just, and in my case, it wasn't worth it for me. So, um, and then I guess it almost leads up to like, I wonder if I can bring it up. Do I have an old? I did a new resume recently. So another question people ask me all the time. Oh shoot, I don't want that there. Is I'm looking for a new job. Like, what should I put on my resume and stuff? And I've never been able to really answer that because I haven't written a resume well since 2009. Like, most of my clients, they don't require resumes. We just chat about working together, and we end up working together, or I get it through references. What am I looking for here? Where's my new resume? This one here. I think this is my latest one. Yeah. Is there anything I don't want to show on here? I guess everything is kind of. Oh, maybe we'll just get rid of that. And that, sure. Yeah. So like, here's my. So this is my latest resume, which I pulled from LinkedIn and just kind of mushed it around a little bit. So hopefully this is resumes are still like this. So I guess it's the other part of the disclaimer and full disclosure is I've been considering giving up the consulting lifestyle, work or lifestyle, uh, just because my wife and I are empty nesters now. Our daughter we only have one kid, and she's off in university now in a different town. Actually, she's not in Edmonton, and so yeah, we're just kind of poking around at different stuff and seeing what we want to change. So like we'd love to travel more too. So we're looking for ways to possibly travel. So I actually did up a resume because I needed to. Well, actually, it was a volunteer opportunity that required a resume, and it was volunteer, like actually on a boat. So, uh, so they wanted a resume, and then there's potentially like we're looking at maybe. So I'd love to work for like Proton or maybe JetBrains or just some of the different companies. That are outside of Canada. So maybe we go and work there for a year because a lot of these jobs require um, they require you to be on site. So yeah, it's just my wife and I. So that's a kind of full disclosure. Like people always ask me about consulting, and now I'm actually getting potentially maybe getting out of it. So, but we'll see. I don't think I'll ever close down Saturday morning productions. Like right now, I don't have one main client, but I do have a small client that I do just a little bit of work for every month, and it's fun. Like I enjoy it. Um, yeah, they give me some. This is a law firm. They give me some interesting little challenges with their their VBA, like Word. Speaking of words, so their Word VBA. I played around with because they needed this kind of new app converted, so I played around with converting an app from PHP. They had an old PHP app that had all sorts of vulnerabilities and security issues, so we shut it down and excuse me, we created this internal app in, what the heck's that thing called? Power Apps Canvas. It's a Microsoft kind of a little bit of WYSIWYG tool. So yeah, that was kind of fun. Yeah, what else do I want to say? Oh yeah, one thing I forgot that on this resume I didn't put. So this volunteer position I'm applying for, um, it's for an IT position, so more like help desk and Windows installing servers. And so I've started the submission process, and then they said, "Oh, we see you're a software developer. Do you have any IT experience?" And I forgot. I should have put on my resume. I got to update this. Is I did work way back in the day, like even before this. So I guess in the late '90s, I worked for the TELUS Advertising Services, which was the telephone books. If anyone remembers those, is the telephone book division of our local phone company here in Edmonton, Alberta, and I was IT support there, and it was debugging helping customers with their problems, fixing printer jams, even with like the kind of the dot matrix printers too, and setting up token ring networking. Token ring was a huge pain in the butt. I can see why Ethernet won. But yeah, just doing some of that. So I have to add that to my resume too. So all right. So that's who I am. All right. And then so let's just jump to the next question. So this one just asked, someone asked this recently. And I've never been asked this question before. Like, do they need a PO box or can they just use their home address? And my answer is no, you don't need a PO box. So spoiler, no. Just because I found, at least for me, again, this is what works for me. Yeah, I've just always used my home address. I do hide it. So my home address, like my clients know, and that's fine. But I tend to hide my home address on, what's the search? What is it? The domain name? Is that what the heck is that thing again? So if I look up SaturdayMP, like I've paid for the privacy protection thingy here, so people can't see where I live. Like this is not, I don't live here. I think that I'm with EasyDNS. I think this is their address, maybe easy. Yeah, I'm not sure what that address is, but that's not mine. So yeah, and I don't really publish my address on my website or anything. I just tell people I'm in Edmonton because again, it's my home. So, but I don't need a PO box. No one's ever cared. I've had clients mail me checks to my house. It's fine. A recent client actually, the past client, a recent client actually mailed me some checks, which is kind of a pain. It was during the postal strike too. So thank you to them for mailing the check. They couriered a check over actually one time, which was very kind of them because it was during the postal strike. But yeah, like nobody really cares about your address too much. So you don't need to post the PO box. Don't pay for that extra money. All right. So the next question is, how do I get started? Like this is probably the most common one I get asked. And again, my advice is again, as a person who started consulting in 2009. Well, I was doing some consulting before then. And again, it's just my thoughts and kind of what worked for me. So again, adjust it, maybe talk to some other consultants, get some other things. But I got started because I'm trying to remember the first time I did consulting. I think I did a little bit before I did full time. I was laid off. I was looking for work. And so I did a little bit consulting with, what was the heck was the name? Because my wife was working there at the time. Flint Electrical, Flint Construction or something like that. So I did a little bit of consulting with them. Again, this is probably in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I did that for like a month or two. And then I ended up, I'm trying to remember my entire work history. It's been so long ago. I think I had a job for a while then. And then I did a little bit more part-time consulting. kind of evenings and weekends. And the reason I ended up doing that second group of consulting, this wasn't with Flint. This was with a company called F Funds Administrative Services, which they've been recently acquired, actually, or a couple of years ago. They got acquired by Element with two L's. So I because I was working at a company that I developed some of the software for FAS, and then a bunch of things changed, and FAS ended up acquiring the software, and then the company I was still working with wasn't working with FAS anymore, and then I think that's what happened. Oh man, that was so long ago. Anyway, FAS ended up acquiring the software, and then some other people knew that I'd worked on it. So then they reached out to, so if I could do some part-time consulting. So I did. And then sorry, it's been so long. I'm trying to remember. So, but anyway, the whole thing is I started working part-time for another company, or I started consulting part-time, and I didn't switch over to full-time consulting until I was sure I would have enough money. Basically, that I can make enough to cover my current salary as an employee. So that's usually my advice to other people is just start part-time, just start doing it on the side. If you don't have a job, you could just try reaching out. Maybe you'll get a full-time gig, but kind of my general advice for people, if they don't have a job, just find anything so that you're making some money, so that you're paying the bills, so that you're not worried about losing your apartment or anything. If you're living at home or with your parents, or you have some, basically most of your expenses are covered, then finding a job isn't such an emergency. But I still recommend people find anything, even if it's not a programming job, like work at whatever, at a restaurant or delivery driver or whatever, just to have some money coming in. Then once you got that settled, then you can start hunting for a job or consulting. And then if you do have a programming job, software development job, and you want to switch into consulting, then again, I recommend starting off part-time just to get your feet wet, see what it's like, do it on the weekends and evenings. And then try to set yourself up into a position where you'll either know that you have a consult, like people have asked you to consult, and they're willing to pay you enough for, say, 6 months. If you got 6 months, that's pretty good. They'll either pay you for 6 months and you have an emergency fund of, say, 3 to 6 months emergency fund. That's probably pretty good. So if you have that saved up, then that's a good time to take the leap. Then you're not desperate. You're not worried. Because one thing I'd learned is that if you're desperate for a client, like you need this client, they will treat you really, you'll be forced to work with bad clients. And of course, bad clients treat you badly. They won't pay you what you're worth. And it's hard to kind of continue building up your reputation as a consultant and just even in doing good work and enjoying your work. So don't be desperate. And to not be desperate, usually that requires money. So just have that saved up. So kind of in summary, to get started, just start small. Start with one little client that you can do work for on the evenings or weekends. And hopefully, even if you doesn't lead to full-time work with that particular client, maybe you just build up a couple references from them, and then you can start doing full-time with someone else. And then how do you find new clients? For me, it's always been through friends of friends, past coworkers. So for example, the law firm I talked about that I'm working with right now, it was someone I worked with. He was in IT. He was a long time ago when I worked at a company. What company was that? Apro, I think they were called at the time, Apro Solutions. I worked with him a long time ago. And then he just reached out a couple of years ago. We'd been kind of in contact, we weren't friends or anything, but just kind of business. Every once in a while we would reach out or chat or, say hi on LinkedIn or something like that. And then, yeah, he reached out because he got a job with a law firm, and he could do all the IT stuff, like supporting Windows, Active Directory, and managing the servers and stuff. But they needed some help with VBA code, and like I said, some of the other stuff I've been doing. So I've only ever cold called one person, and that was Corgi. That was Corgi Bytes, actually. So that's where I learned all about legacy code. That's really, yeah, I learned about legacy code, and that's kind of switched kind of my consulting to help support legacy code. They were a company out in the States. When did I start working for them? 2018, 2017? What is, I don't know. I have to look at a different resume there. I kind of lumped everything into SaturdayMP together. So, but yeah, I heard their founders were on a podcast once talking about being code maintainers, and I enjoyed what they said. Like, I thought it was really interesting, and I was looking for work at the time, and I just reached out to them, and yeah, it all worked out. It's great. I'm still in touch with them, with some of them at least. Unfortunately, Corgi Bytes, the COVID did them in, but I still help out with MentorCon and the legacy. I guess I could even I don't know, I have the websites here. So there's a Legacy Code Rocks community. So if you're interested in that, I help out in this community. Very little help, but like I help run their virtual chat on Slack. And then we have MentorCon, which I'm helping organize this year. Oh no, not RenderCon. Where's MentorCon? There we go. If I spelled it correctly, that would help. Yeah, so I'm helping out with MentorCon. So yeah, if you're watching this video, we're taking, I don't know when I'm going to publish this, I guess 2 weeks from now. Yeah, you can submit your talk, or maybe the tickets will be on sale. So it's May 2026. We're currently open for talks, or RFP is open. So submit your presentations if you want to present at MentorCon. So that worked out great, but that was one of the few. I might have cold called one or two others, but that's the one that I really remember. But again, it's mostly going to be friends of friends, past coworkers, past clients are also good references, stuff like that. So, excuse me. So that's where I found most of my work, and that's where it seems like a lot of other people find most of their work. So don't be afraid to. You can tell your friends and family that you're looking for work and what you're doing, but you're not likely to get any work from them. But the nice thing is, the more you tell people what you do and how you've helped people, then they might just, like, again, it's through friends of friends, stuff like that. They might hear someone, oh, you need a hand, then call Chris or whatever your name there, and then try to have like a little bit of a kind of outline what you do a little bit more than just software consulting. Like I've kind of switched to legacy code just recently. That's kind of been my switch, so that people are like, oh, okay, I have an old app. Who can I call to help update this app? And hopefully my name, when people think of that, they'll be like, oh, Chris does that. You should go talk to Chris. Or maybe you're like a PHP specialist, or maybe you work in a certain field like dental, or I don't know, what's another field that's, I say dental because well, I guess I worked with insurance. I wrote insurance software. But yeah, like you're in a special category for somehow. So someone's like, oh, I need help with dental software, or I need help with my inventory management software. And then they can be like, oh, okay. Or construction, maybe. You're like, oh yeah, I help construction clients. So get something like that down. So yeah, I guess in summary, start small, make sure you have enough money, and then define your first client. Usually for me, it just kind of fell out of the sky. People reached out to me, but for all future clients, it's been friends of friends, past coworkers, clients recommending me, stuff like that. Like I've never gotten, have I ever gotten anyone reached out through LinkedIn or anything like that? Like, I don't think so. So yeah, that's how I'd recommend getting started. So, and that requires putting yourself out there, attending meetups, going to places where you think your clients will be, like conferences or again local meetups or stuff like that. You want to be in their face so they remember you. Okay. So sole proprietorship versus corporation. Oh, I actually have some tabs open for this. So this is kind of advice. Again, I'm not an accountant, not a lawyer. Consult your things. Consult with those professionals. But most people should just start off as a sole proprietorship. And what that means is you don't. So in Canada, there's only sole proprietorship and corporation. In the States, I know there's things like LLCs and stuff like this, like that. But in Canada, these are your only two options. And sole proprietor means you're just doing business as yourself. So, like in my case, it would be Chris. Like I'm doing business as Chris. I don't have a separate entity. Probably the biggest thing, what that means, the two big things for that is your taxes. So SP is your taxes are all personal, and there's no real liability shield. So those are the two things you have to watch out for. But I'd recommend that most people start as a sole proprietorship, because it's a bunch of money to get incorporated, and then you definitely have to pay for an accountant to do your corporate taxes. Whereas you're a sole proprietor, you could get away with doing your own taxes or just using an accountant to help you a little bit with your taxes to save some money. And then a corporation, it's obviously the opposite is taxes. Yeah, basically, it's like your own separate entity. So taxes are in corp. You have to pay salary or dividends to get money out of your company. But the plus side is you have a bit of a liability shield, right? Because you're doing business as your corporation. So if somebody, again, talk to a lawyer, but my understanding is if somebody sues you, that they're suing your company, they can't take your house or anything, right? But as a sole proprietor, you don't really have that liability shield, right? So yeah, most people should start off as a sole proprietor, and then once you get enough money to justify becoming a corporation, then you should switch over. So yeah, so start as a sole proprietor, see how that goes, become a corporation later, especially if you're only doing part-time consulting, then the sole proprietor is probably the way to go. So at least the government of Canada, you can find the website, they'll talk about sole proprietor. Probably one of the biggest things you need to know your sole proprietor is you might have to register for a GST, HST number. So in Alberta, it's a GST, but if you're in province, I think like Ontario has it, not BC. I don't know. Some provinces had the harmonized sales tax, so they combine the provincial and the federal GST tax into one. You'll have to see if you make enough money, you have to register for GST number, HST number. And sometimes companies will actually, especially larger ones, will want that number from you, even if you don't have it. And that was when I was working with Flint, when I was doing work with Flint Construction, I wasn't going to make enough to have to get a GST number, but they wanted one, so I went and registered it. And you can go to this site. I think it's been $30,000 for a while now, but basically, if you don't make more than $30,000 in a year, you're a small supplier, they call you here. So then you don't have to get a GST number. And then you technically don't have to charge GST, but as soon as you have a GST number, you have to charge GST on your services. So if you don't have a GST number, you can send someone an invoice for $100. If you do have a GST number, you send them an invoice for $100 plus 5%, so $105. So you can read more about that there. And this is the time where it might be good to go to spend a one-time fee to talk to a lawyer and accountant about that, if you need to set that up or not. When you're a corporation, you always, as far as I'm aware, you always have to charge GST. Yeah, it's just like you're doing business with any other company. So you have to charge GST. The other thing to note too is when I was doing work with Corgi Bytes, because they were an American company, you don't charge, and all their clients were mostly in America. You don't have to charge GST to that. So you only charge GST to your Canadian clients. So it's something else to keep in mind. But again, talk with a tax professional about how all that stuff works. So yeah, start off as a sole proprietor. Get a GST number if you need one. You might also need like a business name or number. The GST number is kind of your business number. And then if you make enough money, switch over to being a corporation. It gives you a little bit more. The other thing to watch out for when you're a sole proprietor is you might want to look at liability insurance. And that's just to protect you if you do something bad, like you destroy the client's computers, you bring down production, you cost them money and they want to sue you or something like that, basically, and it's your fault. Truth be told, I tell people to get this, but I've never gotten it. I didn't know enough when I first started consulting, and this is probably the riskiest time is when I was a first sole proprietor, because my wife and I, we had a house, we were starting to make some money, we had some assets basically that someone could sue us for. If you don't have any assets, like you're like a 20-year-old or 22-year-old, you just graduated university and you're living in an apartment that you don't own, you have like $2,000 to your name, like who cares? You don't need liability insurance. They can't sue you for anything. Again, talk to a lawyer or accountant, but liability insurance, at least last time I checked, it's been many years. It was pretty expensive. That's why I never ended up getting it. And then I became incorporated, and I was just going to use my corporation as a shield. So like worst case, I lost all the money in my corporation and the 1 or 2 computers. Like SaturdayMP, like I don't keep a lot in the corporation. It's just some money for, basically just money and some computers. And I guess this office chair I'm sitting in. And just a couple of things like that. So it's consulting as a software consultant, you don't need a lot of stuff. So worst cases, they could take the money out of my account, and I would have, I think maximum I would have is like maybe 6 months. I think I had up to 8 one time, basically 8 months of runway in my savings. But usually I would pay that out as dividends if I had a huge amount. I'd pay that out as dividends. But that's basically all they could take, as far as my understanding. They couldn't. It would be a lot harder for them to take my house and stuff. So, but yeah. So maybe if you do have a house, maybe you're an older, that you're in your 30s and 40s, you own a house, you're married, you have a couple kids, you have some other assets like in investments and stuff. You might want to look at liability insurance, even if you're a sole proprietor. The other way to protect yourself too, kind of what I did, again, I didn't learn this lesson until a little bit later, so I got a little lucky. The other way to protect yourself is, I try not to do a lot. Don't do stuff in clients' production. So depending on the situation you're in, even with a small to medium-sized company, sometimes they would give me access to production. Usually that was after they trusted me for a bit. But a lot of times they'll have their own employees that will do the production releases or do the production maintenance, and I might pair with them and give them advice or kind of give them instructions on what they needed to do. But I wasn't the one clicking the buttons or typing on the keyboard. So, and then of course, once clients build up enough trust with you, then it depends on the situation. Like I have done releases and been on clients' production servers and helped them maintain them, and actually been the one on the keyboards and clicking the install buttons and stuff like that. But again, that's usually trust. So that's the other way you can really protect yourself, is don't do stuff on clients' production. Get someone else to do it. All right, so taxes. So for this discussion, I'm not going to go into how corporate taxes and everything work. Because again, mostly how do I get started? I'm going to assume you're a sole proprietor. And so a sole proprietor, the thing with taxes is everything you make consulting gets added to your personal income. So let's say you make, let's say you made like $50,000. You're an employee somewhere, right? So you made that money, and then you made an extra, I don't know, say you made, this is your gross salary too. So, and you made $15,000 as a consultant. So your total is $75,000. So what most people, so being, one of the things being a consultant taught me and running my own business taught me is how taxes actually work. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where people, I used to work at a restaurant. I worked at Vaughn's Steak and Fish House actually in high school and my first year university. This is back in the day when it was on White Ave. Now it's which is, or sorry, just off of White Ave, by Cook County Saloon, which we might have gone there quite a few nights um, after work. That was an interesting place. But now Vaughn's is on Jasper Ave. It's still pretty good. I've been there a couple times since they moved. I'm a huge fan of prime rib. I think Vaughn's really sucked me into liking prime rib. But anyway, I'm digressing. When I was at Vaughn's, I remember people telling me that, like, oh, be careful that you don't make too much money in one pay period because they'll just tax you more. And that was kind of true because you might lose more money on that particular I think we got paid every 2 weeks then. Every 2 week pay period, you might have to pay a little bit more taxes. But overall, like you get that money back at the end of the year. So what people don't realize is that taxes are really, it's a yearly thing. So what the government actually does is they look to say you made $75,000, and then they look. So there's actually a good website here. If you go to this taxtips.ca, again, a Canadian site, this is a pretty good site with a bunch of calculators and just general resources. Like I love their get out of debt. I highly recommend. Oh, I guess maybe that's something else we should talk about. Like you want to get started. If you have crazy debts, like a massive car payment and you're still paying off your student loans and all that, like that gets really scary for jumping over to consult. You want to maybe bump this one up. And just in general, I recommend staying out of debt. One of the dumbest things I did was I was when I was young and one of my first jobs, I was making, my gross income was $30,000 a year, and I bought a $10,000 Ford Explorer SUV for $10,000, and I had a line of credit from a bank and I was paying it off. So that was a third of my like gross income. So my net was probably like 25,000. Like, yeah, that was really dumb of me. So I did that shortly after I graduated. So don't do stupid stuff like that. So stay out of debt. If you do have lots of debt, maybe get yourself out of some of that debt before you think about consulting, or you might have to bump these up. Because if you have a car payment and you don't make the car payment, they take your car. Same with house. Like maybe you have a mortgage that you're struggling to pay, like you got too big of a mortgage. You want a mortgage that's 25% or less. I think that's kind of the rule of thumb, less of your take-home pay, your net income. If you're paying more than that, then that can be trouble. So yeah, stay out of debt. Okay, but anyway, so they have the calculators here, basic income tax calculator. So this is kind of a handy calculator. So if you want to see, like say, if you make $75,000, you can see approximately what you're gonna owe in taxes. Of course, there's deductions and child tax credits and yada yada yada. But in Alberta, you'd have to pay about $13,722 in taxes. Now, theoretically, this would all be done at the end of the year. So you would work for a year, and then at the end of the year, the government would come with their hand out asking for this money. But what happens for most employees is you have a pay stub. Most of you probably don't even realize how this works, or how much you're actually paying in taxes, because you never look at it. because I think pay stubs probably these days are all electronic. Back in my day, at least we got a paper pay stub, at least at first. So theoretically, you'd have to pay. So you're if going by this example here, our net income is 75,000 minus, what did I say, 13. Let's just put 13. It'll be about that much. So, and then what is that? Oh man, I have to do math here. So we got 75,000 minus 13.5. Right, so this is your net take-home pay is 6,100. Right, that's approximately your net pay. And again, this is only taxes. It doesn't include things like your CPP, your Canadian pension plan contributions, or your EI, your employment, is it income? It used to be unemployment insurance, or employment insurance, sorry, is what they call it now. Employment insurance. So, so this is approximately your take-home pay. So what'll happen is when you do and most people don't see this, is because every time you get paid, if you look at your pay stub, they've already deducted how much money should come off of there. And CRA payroll calculator. And how this magic happens is, I haven't done this in a while. I would calculate my own payroll when I first incorporated. So let's pick salary. This doesn't matter. Yeah, pick the right province. So in my case, I was paying myself every month, and then they need the year. So let's say I want to do February's payroll, 28th. And let's say I made $5,000 gross, no bonuses, nothing like that. None of this stuff. Next. Oh, this is new. Total claim amount for employees. I haven't done this in a while. So you do have to enter your CPP amount, TD1 form. Oh, this is how much you can make, I think, in one. Okay, that's new. So you have to enter your CPP amount, let's say I contributed, it's not going to matter, $500. So you'll notice at the end of the year, oftentimes you seem to get magically paid more. It's because you've reached your CPP. Oh, no, they have the stupid second CPP limit. So they only charge you so much. And EI, I don't know, let's say you paid $100 in EI. Oh, I got some errors. Pensionable area. Oh, let's say I paid myself $5,000. I don't know. Let's just put 200. I made $10,000 this year total. Okay. See if that'll work. All right. So then it gives you this breakdown. So you can see my gross pay was $5,000 for that month. The federal government's going to take 400 and almost 450. The provincial government will take 219. And then my CPP is 280. And my EI is that. So that's how the pay stubs are calculated. So if you have a month, so I guess where I was going with that, if you ever had someone who says like, oh, no, don't make more money, you're going to pay more in taxes. That's true. So maybe one month you got a huge bonus. So let's keep, can we keep these? Let's see. Can I cut and paste this here? Let's see. Will that paste nicely? Oh yeah, okay. So someone's like, oh no, if you make so much more money. So if we do another calculation, or if we go back, like maybe we made a huge amount of money this this month. So hey, we did good. We made $8,000 because we got a bonus or something. So this would be 5,000 plus 8,000 is 13,000. Everything else stays the same. Right, so now you can see you are paying more in tax. Let me put this beside the other one down here. All right, so you can see we're paying more than in tax, but that's only for this pay period. So what'll happen is at the end of the year, so maybe we made $5,000 every year or every month, except for 1 month we made $8,000. But what this calculation does is it assumes that we're making $8,000 every month for the whole year. That's where it comes up with this federal tax amount and your CPP amount and everything like that. But at the end, the reason you get a tax refund, aside from deductions, is if you have, say you had maybe 2 months where you made $8,000 and the rest of the months you made $5,000, these months are gonna be kind of overpayments. You're gonna have paid too much tax probably for what you should have, because they assume this is what you're gonna make for the entire month. So you have paid a little bit too much tax. You get some of that back. So a refund is when you've given the government too much money in taxes and they owe some of it back. And when you owe, you haven't given the government enough money. So say in this case here, yeah. All right, what am I going with this? Man, I miss Omar asking me questions. He would keep me on track. So that's something you always want to make more money, because if you end up with this situation, you're gonna get this money back at the end of the year. Don't let anyone tell you don't make more money. Don't take your vacation pay or whatever, or don't take this bonus they're gonna give you. That's dumb. Just take it, because you might have to pay a little bit of tax up front, but at the end of the year, if you overpaid your taxes, you'll get it back next year. Okay, but so if we're going back to taxes for a sole proprietor. So one interesting thing that'll happen is if you make $50,000, so we could see what'll happen is this: as you make this $50,000 as an employee, where's my tax forms here? I'm gonna put that off to the side. As you make this $50,000, let's go to tax tips here. So let's see if we made $50,000. 50,000. So this is what we're paying in tax. So tax on 50,000. So that's what you've already paid in tax that year. Where was I going with that? Yeah, so that's what you've paid in taxes here as an employer. That's come off every check that you've ever gotten throughout your year of employment. So you usually don't have to worry about actually paying this. The problem is when you're a consultant, there's no tax, there's no tax withholding or anything like that on your invoices. So you sent various invoices out to clients and you collected $15,000 total. This doesn't include GST, by the way. This is just $15,000 gross gross income that you collected for as a consultant, but you never paid any tax on this $15,000. So at the end of the year, you're going to owe $13,500 in taxes, but you only paid $6,000. So at the end of the year, you're going to get a surprise tax bill. So for people who are used to getting refunds, you will get a surprise tax bill of, let's see, 13,500 minus 6,875. So you get a surprise tax bill of about $6,500, give or take a little bit. And that can be really, I think that can be really surprising for people that are new to consulting. They think, oh, look, I just have all this magical money just coming in. And it seems like you're making tons of money, but that's because there's no taxes, there's no CPP, there's no any withholdings on your income. So what I recommend doing is any money you make from consulting, you want to save about 30% for taxes. Maybe even a little more if you want, depending on your situation. So, because this is a weird thing. The big jump for this amount here too is because we got pushed into a higher tax bracket from the $50,000 to the $75,000. I don't know where the tax brackets are. Does it show us in here? Yeah, it doesn't show it in here, but there's various tax brackets that you can end up in with slightly higher fees. So I would say when I was doing it, I would always save about 30% of all my consulting money just to pay for taxes. So it would go, actually, I had a separate bank account, but however you want to do it, if you just want to keep track of it on a spreadsheet, but usually a separate savings account is just where you would want to dump all of that money. So, right, is that going to be enough? Did I do these numbers right? Let's see. Mostly live times 0.3. It'll be pretty close. That's not too horrible. So, yeah, so you have to watch out for that. So you can even bump that up if you're really worried about money that you might have to pay for taxes. You could even bump this up to like 40 or 50%. Because that's what you'll have to pay at the end of the year. So when you actually do your personal taxes, you will probably owe money, and you will probably owe, depends on how much consulting you did, but you're going to owe, between 20 to 40% of what you made consulting. So be careful for that. So don't just spend this $15,000, think it's all purely profit. It is not. You will get hit with that 30. You'll be hit with that taxes. So save a bunch of that every year for taxes. And if you charge GST, you have to save 5% of GST for sure. Don't ever spend that GST money, because when you're only making a little bit of money, they'll collect it once a year. But once you start making enough money, they will start charging you GST either quarterly or monthly, depending on how much money you make. So every quarter you'll have to pay the GST. So that's money. So if you made $15,000 consulting, you'd say you charged. Yeah, so $750 is for GST. So you should have collected an extra $750. You just put that in a savings account, and it just sits there until you have to pay your GST. So don't ever spend that GST money, and save 30 to 40% for taxes. The nice thing is usually you're not paying this full tax amount here, this $13,500. Usually you're going to have deductions of some sort or another, charitable contributions, like you have kids, expenses you had. So as a sole proprietor, expenses you had during that you can justify for being a consultant, such as buying a computer or software licenses. That's a expense that you deduct, that is deducted from your taxable income. So if you had $15,000 and you spent like $3,000 on a new computer, your taxable income is actually only $12,000. So you made $15,000, but they only tax you on 12. So that's how expenses work. So if you have, say, you made $15,000 and minus 12,000, right? So I guess, sorry, in this case, because we're a sole proprietor, it's going to be $75,000 minus, say, we were able to deduct $3,000 of expenses because we bought some software licenses or something like that. We're only going to get taxed on $72,000. So that'll help reduce your taxable amount a little bit. So, yeah. So that's taxes. Hopefully that made sense. Yeah, I've been worried about this video because I didn't think I'd do a good job. So hopefully I did okay. I'd love to have Omar or someone else on here just to ask me questions. I think I do better than when I just ramble. All right. And so the last thing is, so I guess in summary for taxes, just remember that anything you make as a consultant goes directly to your personal taxes. You can use this taxtips.ca site with the even if you're not a consultant, you can kind of figure out it kind of gives you a good idea of what taxes you're paying and how much. And I always thought that was really useful for myself just to figure it out what yeah, like how much I might owe at the end of the year. So you can use that to figure out your taxes. So you can figure out like what you're going to make as an employee, and then add on the amount you think you're going to make as a consultant, or just sorry, add your total amount, and that'll tell you what you're going to make, and then you can just enter your employee amount to get how much taxes you theoretically should have paid with your withholdings every paycheck. And then, yeah, just make sure you're saving 30 to 40% of all uh, your gross income for taxes. And then if you do charge GST, don't spend the GST money. Save that as well, because that'll all come due at the end of the year. And this is where I think a lot of new consultants get themselves into trouble, because they think this is all $15,000. They get to keep it all. That is not the case. You don't get to keep it all. So you just have to be careful about that. So, all right. And so my last piece of advice is kind of going back to how do I get started. Once you get, I guess this is good advice for life in general, is you don't want to leave a trail of destruction behind you, just in life, with your friends and non-work acquaintances and stuff. But I guess focusing on kind of consulting and work, like even as an employee, you want to, every time you switch jobs or you get new clients, you want to make sure the people behind you are happy with your work, that you left on good terms. Even if you were laid off or fired, or you had to fire a client, you try your best to, don't go out like giving them the double fingers and saying all sorts of obscenities or something like that. Just try to leave as nicely as you can. And ideally, both sides left happy, or if you were laid off, they didn't want to lay you off. They were forced to because of other circumstances and stuff. But just leave a good impression on people. That's how, again, how I've got um, most of my clients, most of my work as a consultant was through, not most of it, but some of them was through referrals, like through past clients or through coworkers that I worked with either as an employee or just various other people I've encountered throughout my life. They were just happy with the work I'd done, and so they were happy to recommend me. So try to leave a trail of happiness. So, which again, man, the practice what you preach. I've had some recent clients where we didn't part on the best of terms. I guess that's another reason why I'm thinking of giving up consulting. Is yeah, there's some clients where some recent ones where one I was pretty sure was going to be a problem, but they they'd asked me a couple times, so I finally said yes. Okay, I'll give you a hand for a small project, and it turned out to be like that project was fine. It was just kind of um, uh, I don't know what's the best way to put it. I guess they were a startup, and startup. For me, startups are usually not a good fit for me because they never have any money and they don't know what they want, which is fine. They're a startup, right? That's kind of what they're experimenting and trying things. So we kind of struggled to figure things out, and I think we parted on okay, not the best of terms, which I ended up ending that relationship. And then we had another one who, yeah, just again, I didn't manage the. In this case, they ended the relationship with me, and it didn't end on the best of terms. It was partially me not communicating with them, I think, enough. Every time I look back on it, there's some things I should have told them sooner. Some more frank discussions that we should have had. But yeah, so that's yeah. So that, try and practice what you preach. But in both cases, though, I didn't. Uh, I would. I wasn't yelling obscenities at them. I didn't send them nasty emails. Right. You just kind of end things as professionally as you can. But most of my other clients, like we've always ended on great terms. Either me leaving them or like because the work's done, right? Or yeah, usually because the work's done. or they have no need for me, or but that's kind of planned. So a lot of times, as a consultant, I'll try to plan to make myself obsolete so I can help them out till they can hire some people, or once their software is upgraded, or kind of once some things are in place, then they don't need me as much because consultants are expensive. So even when you're been with someone for several years, those costs really add up, and if they can find a way to save that money, that's usually what they'll do. And again, I always try to work to make myself obsolete by trying to train people. Like, I don't hoard information. I try to write good documentation. I try to write clear code. I pair with people, cross train, with the idea that eventually I'm not going to be there. Like, I'll have done such a good job that they don't need me anymore. And so I think that's what you should aim for. So try to leave a trail of happiness behind you. It's good advice for work and for life in general. Um, just try to make people's lives better. Even if you're having a bad day, don't take it out on the person at, like, whatever your coffee shop is, or some waiter or waitress at a restaurant. Like, I think we've all seen that, where some grumpy person comes in and just takes their anger out on someone else, doesn't really deserve it. Um, yeah. So I think that's really all I have. Hopefully, oh man, I had the video on and everything, so hopefully my hair is not too crazy. I'm always self-conscious of the top of my head going bald. So hopefully you found this useful. If you did, I don't know, shoot me a note. Shoot me. So I like presenting in person because I can see if the audience is reacting, or like they'll come up and say thank you after, or give me feedback right away, or I can tell if it's it's not going well. So it's always hard on these videos. Actors are, I don't know, good job, actors, just talking to a camera. You're way better at this than me. So yeah, if you liked what you saw, you can shoot me an email to ask@SaturdayMP.com. You can leave some comments down below, like in some constructive criticism. Like, I don't think that's spelled right, but yeah, I spelled. You can tell me to spell better. Um, yeah, and if you like this, share it with your friends, other people you think might find it useful. You can like and subscribe, all the things. And if you have any other questions or want me to clarify something, please, again, ask at SaturdayMP, put it in the comments below, and I can record a future video, answer it in the comments or whatever, or email, or in a future video if somebody has some questions. I've always wanted to turn this SaturdayMP show into like a question and answer show, but I need some questions. So if you have some software development questions, some consulting questions, kind of more technology related, I guess you could ask me anything, but the correct answer you'll get will drop off quite a bit the further away you get from software development. Unless, yeah, there's a couple other things, like maybe some board game questions. I'm okay at board games. I love board games. But yeah, so thank you everyone for your time and attention. I hope it's snowing out here, so hopefully wherever you are, whatever day it is, it's just a like light snow like it is today, just kind of make everything nice and not too cold. Or maybe it's nice and bright and sunny, and you're outside mowing the lawn. While I was gonna say listening to this, maybe watching this, but yeah, that's all I have for now. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day. Bye for now.